Good morning. God definitely has a sense of humor because last week I received some not so good news, and the introvert that I am would just like to find a quiet place somewhere and kind of deal with the news on my own. But instead, He has me in front of all of you to share my life and my story. I like that we call it staff story. I don't like the word testimonial. It's too much of a church word. What's your testimony? But everybody has a story. My story began on November 30th, 1978. I was born to two incredible parents that not only made a commitment to God and to each other, but they said if they ever had children that they'd raise them to know, love, and obey God. And so I never knew a time where God wasn't real in my life. When I was 8, our church, they had this stupid rule that when you turned 8, you had to sit up in church. And I was too young, man, to understand the sermons and stuff. And so I would pretend to get sick. But the thing is, I loved Sunday school. Like that age-appropriate stuff, I loved learning about Jesus and all that. So I'd only get sick at 10:45 on a Sunday morning. So it didn't take long for my parents to realize that I was faking. But they were also very understanding. They understood the situation. So they did whatever they could to keep me occupied in church. And so I began doing word searches, and there was this lady who would sit with my family in church, and she was, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Word searches." And so she would do them with me. So that's how it kind of kept me occupied when I was a kid. I don't remember the exact age. I think I was 9 or 10. I was getting ready for church one morning, and I just felt God saying to me, you know, you're going through the motions, you're living like a Christian, but you actually haven't made your commitment to me yet. So right there, I asked Jesus into my life. I was baptized at age 13, and around that time, our church started a youth group. And so I had a fun, safe environment to grow in Christ. After high school, I attended a one-year Bible college through the Baptist Convention called BLEC in Whitby. The school closed a few years later in 2002, but the legacy of the school continues in my mind as long as there's graduates from that school serving God in some capacity. And again, it was a fun, safe environment for me to grow in Christ. Years later, when I reflect on what my greatest year was in my life, it's kind of hard because that year stood out so differently from the rest of my life in small town Strathroy. I mean, I was on the streets of Toronto doing ministry. We'd go out to Quebec and part of the East Coast and all throughout Ontario doing concerts and worship services. I felt like a rock star, just without the sex, drugs, and alcohol. But eventually I readjusted to small town Strathroy and got a job to earn some money for college. At that time I was also volunteering with the local TV station that was owned by Rogers. And one night I was asked to direct a show and found out I not only enjoyed it, but I was good at it. So I decided to go to Fanshawe College in London for TV broadcasting. And shortly after graduating, the producer job was up for grabs in Strathroy, ironically enough. And so God kept me in Strathroy, and that's what I did for a living. I was a TV producer. But I was an active volunteer in my church, doing everything over the years, from ushering to teaching Sunday school, superintendent, audio, video, choir, anything you can imagine I've done in my church. And also shortly coming back from Bible College, Youth for Christ had opened up an Upper Deck Youth Center. And so I became a volunteer there. The Upper Deck there was about 20 years of ministry, and I was there for about 10 of them. Off and on, as things would happen in my life in which I would need to take a break. One of those times came in 2008, when one morning I wasn't feeling well. And I ended up in the emergency room and with a blood pressure that was through the roof. Normal blood pressure is about 120/80, my top number was like 200. I would be in the hospital for over a week as they did tests on me and were trying to get my blood pressure down. And they were able to find a correlation between the blood pressure and it was my kidneys, believe it or not. I have an undersized kidney and I have an oversized kidney instead of two normal ones. And so they put me on medication and I started to regain my energy. And for the longest time, despite having kidney disease, I felt fine. Let's just put a ... there, and I'll get back to that later. So I was a TV producer by day, and I also, all my ministry was through volunteer. But then on May 2nd, 2017, my world turned upside down when, due to no fault of my own, I lost my job. It was corporate restructuring. And it left me just feeling completely lost. I don't actually remember much of May of 2017. I remember just little glimpses of things happening, like going to my kidney doctor for a checkup, and then afterwards my parents wanted to go out for lunch in London, and so we went to Eastside Mario's, and you know how you fill up on the bread? Well, not only did I not fill up on the bread, but I actually ate my entire meal, and I've never done that before or after. And so when we got home, there's a phone message from the doctor's office saying, I hope you didn't drive because your blood level's like 1 point something. I remember asking my mom, before Eastside Mario's, when was the last time I ate? Just everything was a blur. So about a month later, I went away for a weekend to Niagara Falls. I'm a big nerd, so I went to Comic-Con, but really that trip was about clearing my head. And after getting back, I remember thinking, okay, so now I can get another job in the TV industry, or just a regular job for now, or go back to school. And you're probably thinking, well, those are the usual options when someone loses their job. But it took me a month to just even think of those as options. The problem was nothing felt right during this time, except for two things. One was a youth ministry course that, again, was through the Baptist Convention, that my pastor thought I should take to help me as a youth group leader. And even found funding to pay for the course. It was 5 or 6 retreats, and in between, we had reading and assignments to do at home for the next retreat. 5 minutes into that first retreat, though, I knew that this is what God wanted me to do for a living, to get into youth ministry. The other thing that felt right was I met this guy named Dave Berdan. Not only were we both big nerds and we were excited for the upcoming Marvel movie, but we both had a similar vision of what we wanted to do with the youth of Strathroy, as we both saw the homelessness, alcohol, and drug abuse, and even some human trafficking that was taking place. I began getting involved with YFC as a volunteer once again, doing ministry wherever God led us to do it at that time. As I was finishing my course, I was hoping it would lead to a job with my church. But despite the fact that they wanted young people in the church and expected me to fill the church because I took this course, they weren't willing to change to get there. And so it meant me leaving that church. The church that my grandparents attended, the church that my parents and sister were attending, and it had been a part of my entire life. And it was a hard decision. It left me lost again because I thought for sure God was calling me to youth ministry. Then one day, Dave took me out for breakfast and asked me to join him as staff at YFC. So this began a whole new journey for me. As I was raising my deputation, COVID-19 would hit. Try raising your deputation during a pandemic, it's not fun. But then God would give us the 37 Frankview Center. And this begins a whole new story of its own. I don't have time to even begin to tell the story. But amazing things have been happening. We just didn't open up a youth center. We're actually changing the culture in Strathroy. The reason why Dave and Jackson aren't here today is because last night they were sleeping on the streets to show what it's like to be homeless. And the mayor was with us and local media. It was amazing. And we are changing the culture. And so if this has been a few weeks ago, this would be where my story ends for now. But as I mentioned last week, I got some news that my kidney health is starting to decline. And it's beginning to affect my overall health. And so it begins a new story and a new journey for me. And I don't know where it will take me. But I know that God will be with me. As I was dealing with this news last week, he gave me this song. Don't worry, I won't torture you by singing it. But the first part of the song goes like this. Hide me now under your wing. Cover me within your mighty hand. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. Thank you.
Father, we just want to praise you and thank you for Aaron and his wife and how you're working in him. I remember when he was in high school, Lord, his love for you and where you've taken him and how he's growing. And Lord, continue to strengthen him. Right now, Lord, we will just ask that you would touch his body physically. You know what's best for him. We just pray that your grace and mercy would be there to heal, restore, and give Aaron the strength to trust in you, Father, wherever you take him. Thank you for his love for the young people of Strathroy. Ministering in your hometown isn't easy, so I just pray that you'll continually bless him and the work that he's doing there. And Father, thank you for his testimony, his life, his story, where you've taken and molded him to be. And we look forward to what you're going to do in his life in the days to come. And we ask this